Yeah, turn on.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for being here tonight. We've got a great crowd. I'm glad to see so many people and so many people that I've seen over the whole process that we began back in February when Casey Steinbacher came here from Durham, North Carolina to talk about the transformation that happened in Durham and how we can learn some lessons from Durham's experience and how we can bring that on and take that on here. So, my name is Tim Corcoran. I'm the Director of Planning for the City of South Bend. And I want to thank all of you, but I also want to thank this great team that we've assembled for this project. There's the staff from the City of South Bend, Urban Design Associates out of Pittsburgh, Torty Gallus Partners from DC, RCL CO, they're an economics firm, Walker Consultants to look at parking for the plan, and Indiana Landmarks to look at some of our historic buildings. So, one of the things that we heard is about how do we think about our unique identity? And how do we create a plan that's for South Bend and it's for us? So, the first thing we started thinking about is, what is it to be South Bend? Okay. So this is, I don't know how this got in here, Megan. This is not South Bend. Sorry about that. So, what is it to be South Bend? I didn't put this presentation together, Megan, so I don't know. Okay, this is not South Bend. Now, I love sailing and I love skiing. This seems more like South Bend, right? No? No. Well, it's a little closer, right? So one of the things is, those other places, they've got the ocean, they've got the mountains, all right? What do we have, right? Well, a lot of flat land and some bad weather sometimes, right? But you know another place that has flat land and bad weather and was able to create a great place? Paris, right? The point of all this is that creating South Bend is up to us. And it's been this journey from February through to today and into the future that we get to create the place that we feel is right for us. We can create our own destiny, and this plan is part about doing that. Excuse me. And we're all here tonight is because we all love South Bend. I love South Bend. You're here because you feel that this is an important place. We've invested in this community, and we really want to see it thrive and grow. So this is what this plan is all about, and that's why we're all here tonight. And that's why I'm introducing Megan O'Hara from UDA to do the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Tim. So I'm Megan O'Hara with Urban Design Associates. How's everyone doing tonight? Well, thank you for spending a beautiful evening with us here, and thank you to so many of you who have come and participated over the past 4 months, but especially this week. I see a lot of faces out there who have been with us more than once this week. So back in February and March, we started with listening sessions. We asked you the best places in South Bend. We asked you what the problems were. We asked you where you like to visit. Maybe it's Boulder, maybe it's San Diego, maybe it's Paris. But you talked about places like Grand Rapids and Fort Wayne and Durham and places along the East Coast and places in Europe and some very obscure places. But you were specific about the things in those places that made them vibrant, active, beautiful places to visit. And we had a survey that was broadly responded to. Folks told us that an active riverfront is important, that safe, comfortable, walkable streets are important. People said, I don't just want a downtown that's walkable. I want a downtown that's wanderable, where I can spend a half a day and go a number of different places, grab lunch, have my kids play outside, take a walk along the river, get some ice cream. And so we consolidated all of that and learned from what you told us you would like to see downtown South Bend be. Our team came together this week. We actually started on the ground around lunchtime on Sunday. So everything that you're going to see this evening has actually been produced in live time this week. So some of you came to the open house on Monday evening where we were reporting back what we heard, and you were telling us things we might have missed, things that sounded right to you, and maybe things that needed to be adjusted or tweaked. On Tuesday afternoon, there was a pinup, and it was standing, wall-to-wall standing people. Excitement to see the sketches, other ideas, and lots of excitement and participation. And here we are this evening at the celebration for Design Week to show you some of those ideas that you actually helped create this evening and this week. These ideas are still very early. They're sketchy, they're loose, and after tonight you will have an opportunity to help us refine them further and make them uniquely, authentically downtown South Bend. We've mentioned this several times, but it's very exciting. There's $1 billion of new investment coming to downtown in a number of projects. They represent new jobs, new housing, new public infrastructure, new places for people to gather, and it's at this very moment that the city decided it would be better to have a collective vision than to let these things happen and let this opportunity pass you by without a forward-looking plan. Out of all of that input that you've helped us craft, we drafted these 8 principles, and these are still in draft form. So on Monday evening and Tuesday, you were helping us refine the language. We're going to use these 8 draft principles tonight to walk through some of the concepts that we tested as a part of Design Week. And we'll talk about activating the riverfront, about new housing options, bringing people and jobs to downtown so that we can have a healthy, thriving economy downtown, creating a safe, comfortable place for everyone, vibrant public places, accessible connections, growing and supporting the local businesses that are here, and embracing sustainable practices. So keep those in the back of your mind, and we'll come back to these 8 principles. How do we build a connected downtown? I'm going to walk through what we think are the steps towards achieving that. Starting with connectivity and open space. The city of South Bend has done an incredible job with the biking and walking connections through the city, and especially downtown. We would love to bring all of our clients all across North America to South Bend to show them what good infrastructure for bicyclists, pedestrians, and other modes of transportation are. But at the same time, you have some gaps, and I think everyone experiences this. You're on the riverfront, on the East Bank, and you're trying to create, a beautiful afternoon walk, and you run into places where through storms or aging, your connected system is now disconnected. So it all starts with the river. Rivers used to be these industrial places that we turned our backs to, but now rivers are the best asset that your community has, and we need to take advantage of that. This is your open space system along the river today. So you can see that the East Bank connections are fairly healthy and well connected, but we have a lot of gaps on the downtown side. And this is what that could look like after all of the improvements that we're going to talk about today. So a connected trail and new gathering spaces, so that you would actually be able to have an immersive experience walking between parks and across pedestrian bridges and across the existing road bridges with improvements, in and out, and you could really imagine that wanderability in your downtown. This is your retail frontage on your streets today. We talked about how other cities have their retail concentrated, and the heart of downtown South Bend's retail is on Michigan Street. So in the future, we need to reinforce the existing businesses that are on Main Street by concentrating new restaurants and cafes and shops and that experience all the way along Michigan Street. These are your street connections, your road connections today. And while certain things are working, there could be some new improvements. So in orange, you're going to see a more connected network in the south. You'll see some additional improvements where maybe the streets are doing a good job of moving pedestrians and bikes and transit and cars through, but they're not encouraging them to stay and spend time there. And then in the south especially, there isn't as much pedestrian connectivity as you get down into the formerly industrial areas at the south of your downtown. So we're going to talk about some of those improved connections. You'll also see the idea of extending Jefferson Boulevard straight across so that Howard Park would feel much closer to downtown, right? Rather than having to connect down to Wayne. You also have a wealth of historic buildings left in your fabric, and these are a location of 15 buildings that the Indiana Landmarks Foundation and a group of students are actually documenting to think about how they could be reused in the future. Downtown South Bend had an epic character when you look back at its architectural history and the building stock that was here. And while many of these buildings are no longer with us, a number of them are. And like other cities such as Charleston, it's very important that we think about ways to restore and reinvest in these buildings. Oftentimes because the existing building stock are the first places that your entrepreneurs and your business owners look to renovate and locate their businesses. It's typically going to result in a more affordable space than going into a new construction building. So anything that we have left in terms of this remaining historic fabric, we really need to pull out all of the stops to help people invest in and renovate these buildings. We mentioned the $1 billion of investment. This is where all of those planned projects are taking place, and you can see that there's a cluster in the northern part of downtown and a cluster in the south. You have a new tower at Beacon that's going to bring 500 new jobs. You have a mixed-use district called the Madison Lifestyle District, the university's investment in the Tribune building, an expansion of the Morris Performing Arts Center, which we'll take a look at, an innovation and entrepreneurship center, and then a number of residential projects happening towards the south of downtown, building that residential base. And then you have technology and innovation happening in the south at the old Studebaker campus. The charge and the frame of this plan is 20 years. It is hard to predict what's going to happen in 20 years. But if everything develops and changes in the way that we think it will, there's a number of properties that are probably underutilized today. So they may be vacant parcels, they may be surface parking lots that aren't full most of the time. So what our team has done is gone through and identified what we're calling areas of change. It doesn't necessarily mean that one entity, like the city or a private owner, is going to acquire all of these, but over time, typically, these will become more and more attractive as places to build new housing or build new retail or build places that bring jobs and people to downtown. So as we walk through this presentation, we'll touch on a number of these and show you what is possible that could happen in 20 years. RCLCO, which Tim mentioned, they did a market study that helped project how many people, how many housing units, how many square feet of new restaurants, how many new hotel rooms could actually be possible in downtown South Bend over those 20 years, and then where would they best fit into your downtown plan. You also have a number of emerging places, districts and destinations. So you have the Beacon Health District, which right now you have a lot of people working there, but maybe they're spending most of their time inside of the hospital or medical office buildings. With the Madison Lifestyle District, there may be places to go grab lunch or reasons for people to be out on the street when that starts to develop into more of a health-focused district. You also have the university's investment in a tech and talent hub around the Tribune building. You have the opportunity for some enhanced entertainment and dining options around Four Winds Field as that stadium is invested in, more retail, more places for people to go before and after the game so that you're not going to the game and leaving immediately afterwards. And then very importantly, the idea of bringing residents downtown so that we can create this 24/7 environment with two neighborhoods on either side of the stadium bolstering downtown with the Western Avenue neighborhood and the River West neighborhood. And the result of all of this is going to be a connected vision for downtown where those opportunity sites are knit together by these gathering places and these walkable, bikeable, enjoyable streets. And that's how we're going to walk through downtown. So our team, just for the sake of dividing up this very large area, has been thinking about downtown north, which is more or less north of LaSalle, downtown central from LaSalle to Western, and then downtown south. And what we're going to do today, because I love walking, is take a little walk through downtown. We're gonna start up here, and we're gonna come down Michigan, and then walk all the way down Lafayette, over on Western, around Four Winds, over up into the new River West development, through Michigan Street, and over to MLK at the Century Center. So if everyone can keep that map in your mind, that's where we're going to be walking today. Starting with downtown north. There is a number of properties, so just north of LaSalle, you have a number of underutilized properties. Some are vacant, some are not fully utilized, some maybe are more surface parked or auto-oriented properties. In the future, there's going to be a new pedestrian bridge that the city is developing, and this could be a thriving residential neighborhood very close to the hospital, close to jobs, and close to Michigan Street, where many of your dining and small businesses are located. This includes a mix of 2 and 3 story townhouse scale development against the river, and maybe 3 and 4 story taller rental or for sale apartment buildings that would be fronting onto Marion Street and Michigan. So starting to think about the value of downtown land and the interest and how many people would love to live in a walkable downtown close to amenities. One of those principles that we mentioned was anchoring downtown with jobs and people. So the picture that you see there is actually the American Tobacco Campus in Durham, which Casey Steinbacher talked about, which is an innovation district that has businesses and companies that locate there and cultivate talent, but it's also become this thriving, interesting place where people want to go and spend time. So this is the Tribune building. I'm sure everyone is familiar with that. And we're on Lafayette Street. We're looking north here. So you've got a vacant lot on this side. And what we find interesting is that you have cars and buses and bikes on MLK. You have people shopping and walking on Michigan. You have a lot of through movement on Main Street with cars and buses and bikes and people. But Lafayette doesn't have much of a character. And we think Lafayette, because it connects these districts, could actually be a place to stay, a place where you move through these districts and you want to spend a little bit of time. This is an early sketch showing the Tribune building occupied and maybe some new development across. The idea here is to take Lafayette Street and make a curbless environment. So cars can still come through here. It could be closed off for Festival Street. You could have a wider sidewalk next to the Tribune building with outdoor dining or maybe picnic tables. Here we're showing food trucks, people on bikes, lights strung across. And this can still accommodate the same amount of traffic that's actually moving down Lafayette Street today. It's slower, it prioritizes people, and it makes a place where you want to stay and spend time. That idea of a tech and talent hub, but it's interesting to others as well. So here's just a street section, and you can see this wide sidewalk here, and you can see the outdoor dining district, and an example of where that has been done elsewhere. So we've come all the way down Lafayette Street, and now we're in downtown South. We are at South Lafayette at the railroad today. The railroad underpasses are a bit of a barrier. I think everyone agrees. It's not the most pleasant walk. There are actually a lot of people who walk underneath this bridge to go to the gym that's on the other side and other education and job opportunities there, but it doesn't feel great. To our right-hand side, we have Union Station, and we're hopeful that in the future there may be interest in Amtrak relocating their South Bend service to the Union Station and reactivating that beautiful, beautiful building as a transit center for downtown South Bend and actually bringing people right into the heart of your downtown. On the other side, we have a vacant lot, and here we have a dark, not very pleasant underpass. So in the future, imagine that Union Station is activated. This is the forecourt and the drop-off for the station. Maybe development with some ground floor retail. You know, you're getting on and off the train, you grab a soda or water or snack, and some artistic lighting, you know, using color and patterns and different timers for the lights. Many cities are doing this and just creating more of an inviting destination and an inviting experience when you do have to cross under. There's some additional art lighting. You can see it's bright, it's vibrant, it feels like a place that you want to arrive at on the train or if you're walking, biking, or taking transit. And the Transpo Center is just up to the side here, so you would have a lot of opportunity for people being able to use and transfer there. So here it is, one of the gems of downtown South Bend. And we truly believe that the right intended use for this is to reactivate it, and hopefully that will be possible in the future. You could have additional street trees across the street by the ballpark, people dropping off, signage, and a much more vibrant activator for the southern part of downtown. Four Winds Field is going to be receiving a huge amount of investment and upgrades, very exciting opportunities and improvements that will be made to the field, as well as the fan experience, the family experience. And as we said, hopefully this leads to some market opportunities for creating an entertainment district around Four Winds Fields that invites people to stay. We talked about comfortable and accessible connections. I think the city is doing an amazing job at this, but when you squint your eyes and look across the downtown, these facilities and improvements are not distributed equally. And one of the places that could use some additional connectivity and accessibility is in this downtown south portion. So here we are on South Michigan today. We're very close to the Transpo Center, we're very close to Union Station, and as more people spend time in the southern part of downtown, there's an opportunity and a need to make these streets more humane. So you can see that you have the two buildings here which are being developed and renovated by historic properties, and the Monroe, the housing development, would be taking place just on this side. So here you can see a street transformation. It takes a few parking spaces to create bump outs, trees. We heard so much about the size of trees in downtown, the lack of shade. Every picture that people put a green dot on, we asked them what they like, and they said, we like the trees. So I think it's very telling that the best thing that we can do is green our streetscapes. It's important for stormwater, it's important for people's health, it's important for heat island and making our cities comfortable and livable. Same number of moving traffic lanes, we've just eliminated a center turn lane in that location. The other principle that we've been exploring is about expanding housing options, which then brings people to downtown in the evenings, on the weekends, and to activate it at all times of the week. On Monday night, someone asked, how many units do we have in downtown? How many people do we have? So the city did some sophisticated demographic work to line up the census tracts to our exact boundary. And we have roughly just under 2,000 units and just over 3,000 people. RCLCO's projection is they look at how much additional housing could be built in downtown. And they estimate about 3,000 new units, 2,500 units of rental, and about 500 units of for sale housing. These are market rate units, would bring roughly 5,000 additional people, plus or minus. Now the important thing is, and Casey talked about this, that we plan for success, that we start thinking now about affordability in downtown. There's a number of mixed income projects that are happening in downtown, which is exciting. You have some affordable and some market rate units. The important thing here to note is that that 3,000 units of market rate housing doesn't include the affordable units, because there's essentially such a need that those units could be absorbed when they're built. So we think that there's a potential, to have upwards of 5,000, 6,000 additional people in downtown in 20 years by 2040. So that's very positive if you're a small business owner, or you want there to be additional amenities in downtown that downtown doesn't support today. There's two neighborhoods on either side of downtown where we see an opportunity for this. So this is the Rabbi Shulman building here, and this is the former Monroe Circle site that's currently cleared, and those buildings are gone. There's also a number of vacant lots directly across from Four Winds Field. The idea here is to create a mixed income community that would allow for the replacement of those public housing units, so residents who have been relocated would be invited to come back. And mixed income means that you provide that replacement housing for folks who used to live there, you add new affordable housing, and you add market rate housing, unrestricted, true market rate housing. That all gets mixed together in every building and every block. The amenities are market rate amenities, and it's managed by someone who understands how to manage market rate housing. So in this concept, if you develop the Rabbi Shulman block, which the Housing Authority does have the appropriate approvals to demolish, and the block across the street, in total that would yield about 280 mixed income housing units, and that would be a phased development. So here we are at the corner of Taylor and Western. You can see Rabbi Shulman and the existing building on this side. And in the future, this is the corner with 4-story housing and even a ground floor space that could be for some type of community use, such as an early childhood learning center or something like that that provides a service to the community that's much needed. The ball field is just down Taylor Street, so when you're coming to a game, what you would see instead of a vacant building sitting there deteriorating and an empty field is actually thriving housing that's well managed with beautiful amenities and green spaces. This is a view from behind. Now we're on the other side. You can see Four Winds on this side. And then just tilting up in the air, we're on Scott Street. This would be a new street connection. So taking that super block, making sure that people can walk and permeate through. This is Western here, and we were just looking at the other side of this building. Surprisingly, very close to where we are today, the library and the other amenities of downtown. But it doesn't feel close if you walk it. I mean, it may if you look at your watch, but if you look at what's happening around you, it's not the nicest walk. There's a lot of vacant lots and not a whole lot going on. So as downtown becomes this more activated place, and we can wander from the library to the Four Winds Field, the experience of filling in this housing helps that wanderability and that livability. On the other side of Michigan Avenue, we're going to look at a brand new concept for a neighborhood called Riverfront West. We talked earlier about straightening out Jefferson. I think that actually got a few claps. And Howard Park being, just a very short walk away from Michigan Street. This is the concept of the office park and a number of the other large parcels being redeveloped into a true mixed-use walkable district and neighborhood, which may be the downtown neighborhood. You have a mix of building types, a mix of rental and home ownership. You have retail up here along Jefferson. You have, importantly, Western Avenue terminating in a brand new public space on the park. You would be directly across from Howard Park, and think about the almost theater of sitting there, and the way that those two spaces would interact with one another and talk to one another. This would become one of the signature public spaces for downtown South, with a thriving residential community around it. There's a number of delicate phasing that would need to happen for this, but you may start to see some early shovels in the ground in this southeastern portion of the site. That's the part that may happen sooner rather than later. And then it's been designed in a way that things like the post office can phase out much later on. So if you imagine, that it's a 20-year plan, you'll see pieces of this start to come in. The other thing I think is extremely exciting, the trail that's along the business park today, it's beautiful, it's quiet, but it feels sort of suburban and it doesn't feel like a downtown place. So now you would imagine walking along that trail and having a number of amenities and housing fronting out onto it. So if it's evening, it's well lit, there's people out there walking their dogs, using the beautiful merry-go-round swings that the city has put in, and transversing up and through Western Avenue as a real neighborhood. So very exciting opportunity. Here's a view of that transformed riverfront path with the housing and mixed use and retail. You can see people sitting out by fires, an improvement to the pedestrian bridge that goes across to Howard Park, and this being a connected, important piece of the riverfront connectivity. Okay, so now we're going to go up Michigan. We're sort of moving into the center of downtown. One of the principles that we heard a lot about was about growing and supporting local businesses. We have had amazing turnout from business owners at every step of this process. They've shared with us what's important to them, what their priorities are, what they need, what they feel like is not working today, and we are thinking as strategically and creatively about and outside of the box as we can. These are some strategies that we may continue to explore. They're not necessarily all going to end up in the plan, but we're looking for feedback on which of these sound like things that people would like to see in South Bend, and then we have to go looking for funding and see what's possible. People talked about storefront activation grants. That is happening in some of the cities that you all mentioned as the places you like to visit. So shop owners could get a grant to decorate storefronts for holidays and change those out throughout the year and actually have designers and artists help them with that. There have also been grants to incentivize businesses to work together. So maybe that's to plan an event or to do something else that draws people into downtown. Great idea, small 3-season spaces for entrepreneurs. We heard time and time again from individual business owners, from downtown South Bend, and from the market consultants that the spaces you have in downtown are too big for the people who want to move into them. They don't need that space, and it's too expensive. So some other cities like Muskegon, Michigan, have actually created these and built, very attractive kind of small business spaces that can create a place in the early years and incubate businesses in downtown. But there also need to be some incentives for the people who own buildings to help break those spaces up into sizes that people can rent and make work with their business plan. We need power and infrastructure in our public spaces so that you can host the events that you are hosting but do it better. And then public art, placemaking, and activation. The other thing we talked about with the businesses is parking, and this is something that is an important part of what we're doing. Walker Parking has been on the ground counting every single parking space in downtown South Bend. And this number, that's a surprise, I think. 14,000 parking spaces in this boundary. It's a combination of on-street and public and private parking. Walker measured this at 10 o'clock in the morning and various times throughout the day to see what happens with the utilization of the parking. Averaged out across this whole downtown area, those 14,000 spaces reached their average peak at 10 a.m. and they're 46% occupied. Now it looks different in different parts of downtown. Some garages and some lots are going to be more heavily occupied. The street spaces next to the businesses are obviously going to be the first choice for people, but this is good news. It's good news that you have capacity in parking. Now we need to think about, how do people find it? Is it comfortable when they get there? Is it well lit? Does it have public art incorporated? Does it feel safe and comfortable and usable? There's 5 garages that are accessible and people from the public can pay to park in. So we were curious and we mapped them. This circle represents a 5-minute walking radius, so it's 10 minutes across. In the heart of downtown, all of those overlap, and there are 1,700 parking spaces in garages available in total, not necessarily overflow. But that's, again, a very good asset that we can build on. As new development comes into downtown, parking is one of the things that makes it expensive and difficult to develop. So an incentive that may be able to be used is how do we fully utilize and capitalize on this asset that you already have, and that's going to be explored further in the plan. So now we're in the 200 block of South Michigan. This is the block where you have your most incredible historic resources. The City Center Place facade was, I believe, installed over the original facade in the 50s. And we did some digging to find the historic facade and what that building could look like if you uncovered it. Pretty incredible. You know, you already have Dainty Maid, a thriving business here. Imagine if you could activate more of that street and make South Michigan, the 200 block, a place to be. The State Theater. There was even a question in the survey, what do you think should happen to the State Theater? I think we still need to do some more exploring about who the user could be and what the use might be, but we can all agree that this is an asset that we do not want to lose in the South Bend community. So if that could be reactivated for some type of evening entertainment use, as well as reoccupying the building next door, which has been modified but is a historic building, you know, those 3 building renovations would completely transform the 200 block of South Bend, downtown South Bend. We did an analysis, and most cities that have a core of retail have lots of face-to-face retail either along one street or together on just a couple of blocks. Downtown South Bend has 1/2 block where your retail faces each other, maybe a little bit over by the Morris, but this 1/2 block of Michigan Street is the one place that happens. And while these are wonderful, well-loved businesses, they are located in a parking garage, and we noticed that every single storefront looks exactly the same. The same awning, you can't see the signage. We have outdoor dining, which is amazing, we want outdoor dining, but the trees actually happen right in the middle of where people need to walk, and it's quite constrained. So I think we can all agree this could be better, and we could support the businesses by helping make a few upgrades to this block. Just a few simple things. We've shown some bump outs with bigger trees, maybe moving the small trees that are right where people need to walk so that there's more space for outdoor terraces and dining. Taking off the awnings, putting in some blade signs and some signage that you can actually see when you're out on the street, allowing each of the storefronts and businesses to be different would go a long way towards making your face-to-face block, sort of the thriving place of the Michigan Street retail, feel like a place that people want to be. And these are not, you know, huge changes. These are small things that can be done with incentives and grants and a little bit of money and some design support along to support the business owners. One of the principles was about creating a safe and inclusive place for everyone to be. We've been working at Howard Park this week, and we can all say that it's incredible. I want to bring all of my clients across the country to spend time in Howard Park. It's a place where children feel comfortable, they feel like it's their place, children of all races, of all abilities, and people use that building from the time it opens until after it closes at night. There's also a number of wonderful events and gatherings that are taking place in South Bend. So you have the bones and you have the success to build on in terms of creating safe and inclusive places. I think what you're missing is more places to have those gatherings and places to create the vibe that you're already doing in the spaces that you have. Which leads us to create vibrant public places. You have it in Howard Park. but in your downtown, I think everyone can agree we're missing a vibrant public place. You have the gridiron, and you're doing an amazing job with it, but it was purpose-built for a different reason. So we're gonna go a little bit north of the gridiron to start and work our way back down. The Morris is expanding to have additional pre-function and gathering space. We'll see an image of that in a minute. And the plaza in front serves an important purpose, but we've heard things like, I'm terrified of letting my kids run around because it slopes down to MLK and people are moving so fast. Or, I like to drive through, but sometimes I don't know if the gates and the bollards are going to be open, and they're almost never open, and so it's not really functioning as a street. The Morris is actually doing their security out in that street right of way because they don't have enough space. This is an important gathering place. It's a civic space, it's a formal space. Sunday when we were walking around, it was full of people around the fountain, but it's time for a few improvements and updates. So, the Tortigalis team led an exploration of what could happen if you just went ahead and closed Michigan Street. I think we all would love to take traffic down its historic route straight through Michigan Street, but there have been so many changes to the way that the space has been used since MLK routed around that it's really not functioning like a street today. So we wanted to see what was possible if you reclaim the space. You could have an improved sort of civic access here where the historic street right-of-way is, including large statues on either side, a new fountain that's on access with the entry to the Morris, tree-lined promenade, maybe even a restaurant building out there in that space to activate it when there aren't shows going on, and when there are, that's the perfect place that you want to go before the event. As well as raising the space on the other side of MLK, which feels a little bit like a sunken garden today. And even though the plaza was full of people, there were no people down in the Gwen Stryver Park. So we need a new life for Gwen Stryver Park. Here is the Morris Performing Arts Center today, and the addition is planned to be here. This is the concept for the building itself. And you can see there a beautiful addition that spans between the Morris and the LaSalle. Okay, we are finally at the heart of downtown. Hopefully everyone's still awake. This is the Hall of Fame, and I think this has been a conundrum for South Bend for a long time. You have three buildings, the Century Center, the Hall of Fame, and the First Source Center, that were built for specific users. And some of the uses have changed, especially the Hall of Fame. And we're stuck with this building saying, what can we do with it? And we know that there's underground structure, there's egress, there's grade changes, there's all sorts of challenges. But we do believe that there is a future where you can reactivate and reuse that building and create a true town square in front of it that does double duty, just like your gridiron does, but maybe feels a little bit more like a civic and a public space where you want to activate it regularly. So we're showing a reused Hall of Fame. We're showing actually sort of a big awning or a porch coming over it so that you could create some shade underneath, and a place where maybe a restaurant or a food hall or a brewery or something like that could operate. In front of a large lawn and a space for shade for parents, this is where you set up your screen and you play games and you play movies out on that screen, movies on the lawn. I know you're already doing that. And then in front of that, where the parking lot is today, you create your hardscaped town plaza, your town square. This can have food truck rallies on it. This could have those small three-season spaces for entrepreneurs. If you reroute the traffic that comes under the porte cochere for the courtyard out the alley, this entire space could be pedestrianized. And we think that what you should do is create a curbless environment, just like we were talking about on Lafayette, all along Washington Street and MLK Street for this portion, so that this whole block feels like the living room of downtown South Bend, the living room of all of South Bend. So we're somewhere over the roof of the parking garage here, flying up high. And this is what you have today. You're doing all of the things, you're making it work. We think that downtown South Bend deserves a true heart. And that's what that could look like. This could be, we actually have a version of this that has your Christmas tree lighting happening, but it didn't get rendered in time. But this is a space that could be active in all seasons. You can see that big porch added on so that you create some shade and a place where people can gather, kids can run and play, cars are slowed down, and that's your heart of downtown. That's what you can do if you keep the building. We also wanted to explore, if we're dreaming big for our 20-year time frame, what's possible if we think about the Hall of Fame building going away. It opens up some exciting opportunities. One possibility, we think you still want something there to activate the space. You have office, you have parking garage entry here, you have cafes and small businesses, you have the hotel on this side, but you don't have a lot of spaces where restaurants can open, people can sit outside, the real activators, maybe entertainment, dining, shopping. So what we were exploring was the idea of a food and market hall. So it could be a food hall, it could be more of a market space with small vendors inside and communal space where people can walk through, as well as outdoor dining terraces on all four sides to activate it. So you could go in, buy, shop for groceries and specialty items, get food from a vendor, bring it outside, watch, the movies in the park or those spaces. There's a fountain on access and the same paving pattern all the way around, as well as some new small scale retail spaces for those local operators who are looking to locate here. And then this is what that could look like. So it's the same concept, but you have much more visibility. The building's not blocking your view, and you're using that topography and the space to your advantage to create that activated, thriving public square. The First Source building is tricky. You actually have a pretty nice dining terrace on this side. We were wondering if there's an opportunity in the First Source portion of the building to bring a user in there. Maybe it's a cafe, maybe it's something else, but it would be wonderful to get the dark glass replaced at street level so that you could actually see people in there and see something happening. What I think is fascinating about this space is that during the cold winter months, you have the atrium space. So if this were a restaurant or somewhere where people were frequenting, you have what feels like outdoor dining, but inside. Someone said in the February sessions, we need a winter garden. You have a winter garden. It's right here, but it's not activated with any reasons for people to go there. And you may be able to think about the permeability along this edge. Again, bigger trees. We need trees that are in larger planters, not tree wells, so that they can grow large and offer shade, and maybe some outdoor dining. So we've sort of shown that edge activated. It's a tricky building, but we need to do everything that we can and pull the strings to make the heart of downtown a place everyone wants to be. And this is the last principle for tonight, activate the riverfront. We think this is the most important thing that you can do. Active riverfronts and parks, as we've seen at Howard Park, they bring people out. People want to be there, they want to wander, they want to spend time, they want to spend money, and they will choose with their feet and with their dollars to spend time in your downtown. So this is your riverfront today from the island, sort of from the view of the East Bank. We have the Century Center, we have the walls, and we have portions of these open spaces and connections that are closed off and portions that are open. It's not very often that you can get on the island these days. We've tried many times. And here's a concept for what that could be, a one way that we could reconnect the riverfront in this portion. What we're showing is a cantilevered walkway along the side of the Century Center and a new curved retaining wall that follows along, as well as an additional bridge that lines up with the entry to the Century Center. You can see the market building here and that idea of bringing people through and into this activated space. The island could still be closed off for special events, and people would be able to get all the way along the riverfront up to this point and then either go under the bridge or up back to street level. This entails filling the park and bringing that space up to street level. So we spent a lot of time in that park on Sunday. It was a beautiful day. The space didn't feel very good. Almost no one was down there. It was shaded. The infrastructure is deteriorating. But this would allow you to create sort of a public space along MLK, maybe an opportunity for a restaurant or an activator with different levels and terraces where you could actually sit outside and dine and enjoy the river views all the way across. Our team on day one, Eric is in the back here, started saying, you know, how far are people going to walk? What does that wanderability actually look like? And we looked at a walk that goes across Colfax, down the island, across the East Race, back on Jefferson, and then along this edge, and maybe up and down Michigan a little bit, you know, about 2 miles. And that's very achievable, you know, for people who are out doing that in a leisurely way. This core square right here with the river as the heart would be the key attraction for your downtown. You can see that in this option, we're showing the reused Hall of Fame, and there's some improved connections here at Jefferson. Today you have parking spaces and some closed connections and a fence there. In the future, you would be able to walk out onto an overlook with the pavilion, look across, see the Keepers of the Fire, see Eastside's Park and all of the that development on East Bank, as well as to wander down along this riverfront experience all the way back up and into this expanded park along the Century Center and then into your heart of downtown. So we think this would be a game changer for driving family-friendly tourism, for bringing people into downtown, keeping them here, for attracting new residents, and for offering something to the people who have lived and worked and stayed and invested in downtown until now. You know, one thing we want to acknowledge is that there is a desire to see and experience the river from that space. The Century Center is a challenge. It's a challenge because it creates a view of the river if you're inside, but it blocks it from the outside. So this may be something to explore in the future. Maybe it's a visual connection, maybe it's a walking connection that can go through the building, or other options. But we did want to note that from this space, there's sort of a what's next that this raises in terms of other ideas to explore. So just to close, you know, we have this loop and this big idea of the riverfront downtown that ties together all of the other investments that we walked through. Just want to recap where we are headed next. So we're going to spend some time listening to you, but we're still pretty early in the process with Design Week. And from what you tell us tonight, we're actually going to be drafting the draft plan. So it is important that we hear from you. There will be another open house in the fall to bring back some more refined concepts to you from that draft plan and get your input again. And then the city will complete the plan and walk through the results. Tonight, as we break, we want to invite everyone to go out into the lobby area, and there's going to be boards with all of these ideas that you saw tonight. We're going to ask you, what did you like that you heard and saw? You can put green dots on those things. What did you not like? You can put a red dot on it. Maybe you have ideas that we didn't get to explore this week. You can let us know what those are. And we're going to, you can talk with the designers, you can talk with the city's team, and we're all very excited to hear what you think about these ideas and other ideas that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you to the amazing design team that came together this week. When Megan said we've been working hard all week, she was editing the presentation like a minute before we started. So that we've used every amount of time, every minute of the time that we've been here working away to come up with this. And you know, we hope that the ideas that you've talked to us about since February you see some of those ideas presented in this plan. So, you know, I want to invite everybody to participate, to continue to participate in that discussion by moving out into the hallway now and having that broader discussion. And so, again, thank you all very much for being here this evening. And we really look forward to seeing you soon this fall as these ideas are progressed further.